The car's purpose, that's a good question. Essentially just to make me smile. It's like a family heirloom to me. I've got my own family now. I've got 2 beautiful daughters. You know, the family time is great, but the type of person I am, I need to fiddle with stuff. I need to busy my mind, and it's partly the reason why this car's never finished. My name is Bryan Marland, and I'm the owner of this 1981 Audi Coupe GT5S. So this car was my granddad's retirement present to himself back in 1981. He used to take me on holiday in it, take me to school in it, and it was his pride and joy for many years in his retirement. And then unfortunately when he passed away, my uncle took ownership for a couple of years, but sold it after, you know, to chase his own dreams with car ownership and stuff. But it didn't go too far, kept quite local to where he lived. And at that point I was still quite young, didn't have a great deal of money at the time, but then times change. I got a house with a garage and a few quid in my pocket. Rang him and asked him if he knew if the car was still about. He believed it was still local, made a couple of phone calls and found out that the guy still had the car, and we negotiated a price, and I took a trailer down and picked it up about 10 years ago now. There's the story. So the guy still had the car, but he'd been caught for drink driving, and the car had been off the road for about 5 years, I think, when we found it. So it'd been parked on some grass, kind of 5 years of, you know, 4 heavy seasons. It took its toll on it. The paint was flat, the all underneath where the moisture from the grass had gone up, and all the suspension and the exhaust, everything, all the metal, well, all the underside of the car was very rusty. But fortunately I bought it for very little money, but I had to bring it home and take it completely to pieces, nuts and bolts, and start again from scratch. So yeah, it was in a very poor condition, to a point where I actually on eBay, another car, similar one to this, but better condition with MOT, came up for sale, and I needed the parts to finish this, and you just can't get them. So I bought the car on eBay, drove it home, and cut it up to salvage the parts to make this car that was rotting in the corner usable again. So it's been a long road, and this car's probably made up of about 2 or 3 cars now, actually. But it was important to bring this one back. This one has all the sentimental value. It doesn't really matter to me anymore what the inherent value of the car is. I'm never going to sell it, so actually what it's financially worth on the road is kind of inconsequential. It's worth more to me just for sentimental value, and staying in the family. Which is also kind of why it's not really standard anymore either, because that didn't really matter to me either. The essence of the car, what my granddad bought and admired way back in the day, I've tried to keep as a vision, but build it more into kind of what I wanted to be able to drive and what made me excited. It's very different to the car that he purchased way back in 1981, that's for sure. It might look like it from a distance, but it's a different beast now. all the underside, all the fuel lines, all the engine and everything, it all came out, and all of it's been replaced with either better or different equipment. I kept the original paint in terms of colour, but I glossed all the plastic work. As you start restoring bits, you can't just let other bits look weak by comparison. Probably get that same comment from everyone, but you take a step back, you look at it and you go, doesn't really look very good anymore compared to the nice fresh paint. So all of it's been done progressively. I'd like to say I had an enormous budget and was able to spend tons of money and get all the best people to do it, but I pretty much had to do everything myself because I just didn't have the funds. So it's taken kind of 6 years. I guess some people could take longer. It's just as and when I had the money, I changed bits, replaced bits, paint bits, refurbish bits, save up and buy modified bits, which is the fun bit. Purists won't necessarily appreciate this car, which partially led me to set up my own club for like-minded people, because as I built the car, I put a lot of photos on various forums and things like that, and you inevitably get the people that want to tyre kick what you've done, because you're not putting 35-year-old parts back on the car, which to me is kind of unimportant. The whole impression for me is about enjoying the car and driving it, and then getting the impressions from the people that see it on the road. And you know, if Audi decide to stop manufacturing the parts, you got to be a bit creative and come up with something, you know, that to keep your pride and joy on the road. You know, that's what I've done, and equally along that road, because of my desire to kind of make it faster, go faster, stop quicker, be more comfortable. You know, it's been my idea that I wanted to just kind of make a classic, but for my own needs in a modern world. The original engine was about 105 horsepower, carburetted. It had a nice sound. It was a 5-cylinder, which is what a lot of the Audi aficionados really appreciate. Don't get me wrong, I love it. You know, a 5-cylinder engine makes a lovely noise with if you put a big bore exhaust on it or something like that. But that tuning potential is great, but it's expensive. Plus, it's quite a big engine to have in the front-wheel drive format, because it's quite a lot of weight, really quite far over the front of the car. So I thought, well, bearing in mind the budget that I have and what I'm trying to do with the car, the 1.8 20-valve 4-cylinder engine that you can find in a lot of Audi A4s from sort of around the 2000 era was quite an obvious choice. They literally bolt up to the gearbox, and by dimensions it totally fits in this car I didn't have to cut bulkheads and remanufacture everything. It was quite out with one and bolt in with the new. The wiring was a different matter. I'm no electrician, and that's probably about one of that, and retrimming the interior is about the only two things I didn't really, and painting the car I didn't do. Everything else was by my own hand. So, you know, kind of mating kind of year 2000 technology with ECUs and fly-by-wire throttle to a 1981 wiring loom was a bit more of a stretch than I was going to be able to achieve. So that went out to someone else to achieve. But you know, these people can do that. That is evidence. And now I've got it's on its second engine since I built the car. The desire to go fast kind of when I was looking for a turbo to buy, I bought a bigger one than the standard engine was going to accept. It never went pop, but I was always worried that it would. So this current engine's got forged bottom end rods, JE pistons, oversized. It's got basically the whole shooting match, all the uprated valve springs, ported head, and then to accept the roller bearing turbo. And it's got a 3-inch downpipe and exhaust system with a 3-inch core intercooler and throttle body. So it's running 350 horsepower, and the old engine was never going to achieve that. So that did its stint for 18 months, and then this new one went in, and I've not looked back since. Yeah, so the engine is what makes this what this is, and probably my favourite modification on the car, I guess, just for smiles for miles. Well, the interior, in trying to be in keeping with what my granddad originally bought back in the day, I wanted to keep the essence of the car and the perceived styling that Audi created for it. So when I got the car back, it had been stood for 5 years, and the sun kind of beating down through the windows. I went to take the seats out, and my hands literally went through the material. They actually disintegrated. Luckily, the foam and stuff was okay, but and you know, doing my homework on it, I found out that particular type of tweed interior, no one's car ever survived. Like, if it's still going now, it'll be pretty thin and threadbare. It was quite a delicate material, but I like the design. The kind of grey tweed was quite nice against the red, and I wanted to keep that idea of the essence of the car. So what I've done is I've recreated it. I've got a similar tweed matched with like a chocolate brown leather, so it's kind of half leather, half tweed, seat wise, to match all the dashboard, and a lot of the trimming was all in like a chocolate brown colour. so that all tied in nicely. But I always enjoyed old Fords and stuff. The RS Turbo seats were always the ones to go for, so I sourced a pair of those and retrimmed those rather than putting the original seats back into it, which, like with this car, has been the same all the way. It was a good idea to do that, and then when I came to fit those seats, the subframes didn't work, so I had to literally cut apart the original seat frames and then weld a whole new frame up to make the new seats fit the car. When I first built this car, it caught the eye of Elliot Roberts at Performance VW. Not long after I finished it, I took it to a car show. Luckily they had a stand there, and I literally drove the car right under his nose. Got out and sort of said, "What do you think?" And timing was on my side, so they liked it. It was what they were interested in, and not long afterwards, we had the photo shoot, which is all very novel, as is this, and we had a good day on the photo shoot, and then we talked about the details, and the magazine came out not long afterwards, and it's now, the cutout of the magazines and stuck on my wall. So that was probably one of the biggest achievements, and it wasn't the only one. I'm very, very fortunate. I've been in Performance Audi magazine as well, which was a major accolade, and also only 2 months ago I was in Practical Performance Car, and I really should probably mention that as one of the major achievements, because I got the front cover. I kind of was able to sit back at that point and go, "Wow, I've done all right here with this one." It's amazing. You go from strength to strength. The car, it was one of the main reasons that I started my own car club, and that is I never thought that I would be doing things like that. But after the way the world is these days, and the way that the car clubs kind of were, and forums and things like that, and meeting all the tyre kickers and stuff, it really pushed me to go, well, actually there's more people out there like me that build a car for them and not for others, and so I pushed myself and totally out of my comfort zone and technological kind of what I'm good at, but I went out there and I set up a car club, Retrospec Plus, for a place for people like me that don't really want to necessarily adhere to a certain genre, to build their cars their way. And I figured that I'd like those people if they were like me in that respect, and I wasn't wrong, and I've now got some really strong friends and friendships from people just like me, but that have their own cars, and they're not Audis. There might be BMWs or Minis or Volkswagens, but they're all the same type of people, and so I should really notch that one up there as one of my major achievements, to bring people like that together, because that's for me what it's about. That's where the fun's at, when you take your car to the show and you polish it up and you park next to these same people, you're immediately on the same wavelength and you immediately start having fun, and that's important. So yeah, that's probably up there too. In the winter I'd done a brake upgrade, and I put big brakes on the car. It's got Cosworth RS discs, 330mm discs on it. I got some Brembo calipers and cleaned it all up, painted the calipers, fitted them to the car, and in my excitement I must have forgotten to put thread lock on the bolts. So I finished the brakes, did it all up, and about a week later or 2 weeks later was the Retro Ride show down at Goodwood. Probably one of my favourite weekends of the calendar, and I kind of got the car to a point where I was that confident in it that I booked track time. So I was going to take the car out on the circuit, set off, and everything was fine, and I went all the way down the motorway, and you get towards Goodwood and you come off, and there's lots of back lanes and B roads to drive down. So I come off the main road, which is quite good I suppose in hindsight looking back, and I'm driving down this road, and all of a sudden I hear this oh no. So I pull over as quickly as I can, delicately, and I look underneath the car, and one of the bolts that holds the caliper on the breakers has unwound itself, and it's gone. That wouldn't be so bad because I keep a spare. But what I didn't keep a spare of was, because the brakes aren't designed for this car, they're made up of, there's an adapter, and the adapter is slightly different, I think, from the different years on the car, because when I bought the adapters, assuming they're all just going to fit on, there was a gap of probably about 8mm that I needed to pack with washers to make the brake caliper spacing correct for it to work. And it worked for that weekend to get, well, it sounds like a real bodge, but it wasn't bad. I put the washers in there, bolted it all up, and everything worked well. Until you lose the bolt and all the washers, it disappeared. And I didn't have that many washers to put back in the, to space the brake out to actually drive back down to the campsite and fix it properly. So I had my limited spares with me. In the boot, got the toolbox out. I had like 2 washers. I didn't have the 5 I needed to make up that 8mm gap. So what am I going to do? I needed to space this out, otherwise I wasn't going to get the brake on the car and carry on. And on the side of the road, I'm scratching my head, and as it happens, I had this spanner, and that fitted in behind the brake caliper with the 2 other washers I needed to space it out. So I drove all the way from just off the motorway, half an hour drive to Goodwood with a spanner sticking out of my brake caliper. Needs must. When I got to the campsite, and I had all my mates from my car club there, and I lifted them. They all were very keen to help me fix the problem, and I really didn't want to admit to them that I had a spanner sticking out of my brakes. When they saw the bodge that I'd made, they all were rolling around laughing. It was quite the bodge, and it got me there. But it was quite funny at the time. So I drive it probably, certainly in the summer months, kind of evenings and weekends when I get the opportunity. I've kind of made sure I didn't go the route of putting a roll cage in it, because I can put the family in it, and we can go and, I can take the kids to their clubs, I can go to the shops. If we're going to go to, go out somewhere for a picnic or something cool, then, we can bundle up in here and, we can have some fun. I find it fun anyway. The fact that the car is quite hard riding because it's so low, and it doesn't have air conditioning, maybe the other 3 in the house might not be quite so keen to take it as I am, but it's part of the family, so it goes. If I can make it go somewhere that we're all going, then it'll come along as well. I generally take it out, use it quite hard for some fun for an hour. I'm not precious overly with it. I really do like to wind it up and have some fun, and I drive it pretty hard. That's when it's the most rewarding. So that doesn't worry me, but it's generally just weekends and evenings. And then once it gets to kind of October, I stop using it, but not because I'm worried about the weather. It's just that it's generally wet then, and I just can't get any traction. So it's no fun if you're just wheel spinning everywhere. Novelty wears off pretty quickly. So I get to October and I just pull it back in the garage, and then we'll leave the fun for the better weather days. Well, this car really is special, purely for the sentimental value of it being my granddad's. He's no longer with us, but he holds a very special place in my heart. He was, he'd take me out in the car and he'd rev it up and he'd see the smile on my face, and those are the memories that stick with me. And because of that, I'll never sell it. I don't know what he'd say with what I'd done. Probably something along the lines of, well, that's tremendous, because that was his favourite word. I hope one day maybe my girls will take it on, and hopefully they'd love it as much as I do. Who knows? But they'll certainly stick with me till I can't drive it anymore. Last year, got some track time at the Retro Rise show, and I fixed the brakes, and I took it on the track, and we had some fun. I got some good hot laps in, And then I also took it to Chelsea Walsh, which is the hill climb that Retro Rides put on as well, and I got some tickets for that and had a fantastic morning, racing it up the hill against the clock. So that was great. I have Castle Combe Circuit, which is quite local to me, and I've used that before with other cars. And I think the next thing, once we get out of lockdown and this strange time we live in, when that stuff opens back up again, I think I'm going to take it on Castle Combe Circuit and see what kind of lap times I can get from it. But it always is mildly limited to the fact that it is my granddad's car and it is and holds such sentimental value. It's why the white car's going to get built up, because I'd be beside myself if I actually smashed it up. So while as much as I'd like to use it and drive it pretty hard, I never go full tilt with it, because I don't want to push it outside the car's or my comfort zone, because I'd hate to lose it. So yeah. So on a private road, I basically got up to about 130 mile an hour, and there was some left, which is really impressive. But it is a car from 1981, and steering geometry and the chassis of the car was really starting to show its limitations. You get up over 100 mile an hour in this car, and the steering gets very light, and it's very sketchy. So while I have all that performance and horsepower, I have taken it there once or twice, but it very rarely goes on track. It happily sees 120 mile an hour. I think it probably do 140. I think it could. When I had it rolling roaded, when they measured the performance and then they measured the gearing, and you can do an equation, and it is an estimated top speed. It would run at a puff at about 145, but I've never been there, and I don't think I will. It's a bit of an ambassador for the club. It helps me kind of open doors. I talk to lots of new people that are always interested in it. What's quite amusing is, I guess, the shape of the headlights. If people miss the badge, they go, "What is it? Is it a DeLorean?" And it's like, no. You take it with a pinch of salt. Not everyone's quite the gearhead that I am, or whatever. They might not know or understand, and I'm quite happy to tell them. But yeah, nothing but really good, solid results. Even I pull it on the driveway, wash the car, and all the neighbours are always waving, and I'm the guy in the street with a noisy car, which is quite cool. Even the kids my dad's got a noisy car, so he kind of goes before me now. It's kind of part of who I am. So long may it continue. On a finishing note, really, I'd really like to thank my wife for putting up with me. For just marrying me for 17 years, but this is a passion that I'm not going to shake loose, and she pretty much got understood that kind of not long after I'd started doing this car. So my wife and my kids, my family, for supporting me first and foremost, and then my core group of friends that run the car club with me, helping and supporting and just being as crazy as I am about their own cars and everything that goes along with it, but making it what it is it's such fun, so I'm grateful to them and to thank them for all their help. I'd also like to thank Tom Simpson, who, when I run out of skill, he runs his own garage. He's a drifter, and he's a very, I'd say, famous drifter, Rusty Slider, and I drop his name in there. But when I run out of skill, he helps me kind of pick up the pieces, and he's helped me keep this on the road all the way along the road. Also, Clive King as well. He runs Identity Auto Works. I can see him helping me a lot more in the future. We've struck up A great relationship that slipped for probably 15, 20 years. He was a boy racer like me in my hometown years and years ago, and we've got back to know each other again in recent years, and long may that relationship continue as well. And and just to name drop a couple, Andy Umpleby and James Wade and Tommy Potts, who helped me kind of drive the Retrospec club forward and have supported me in what I'm doing. So thank you guys for that. And that pretty much sums it up. Thanks.